Good evening and welcome to First Issues. We have all been made well aware of the dangers of smoking, and those who continue to smoke do so at their own risk. But what of the dangers of passive or second-hand smoking? How well do we take into account in both our personal and professional lives the true extent to which second-hand smoking can be harmful? Second-hand or passive smoking has been linked to lung cancer. There's also some evidence suggesting it may be linked to lymphoma, leukemia, sudden infant death syndrome, and brain tumors in children, and cancers of the larynx, throat, nasal sinuses, brain, bladder, rectum, stomach, and breast in adults. Some research even indicates that secondhand smoke is more toxic and potentially more dangerous than the smoke that is directly inhaled by the smoker. Some of us may not think too much about these dangers in our day-to-day activities, but decision makers have taken them into account, crafting the Control of Smoking Act of 1992, which was amended in 2004, to ensure that non-smokers in public areas are provided with a separate entrance, separate ventilation, and separate seating areas away from those who choose to smoke. But what of the employee who has to serve smokers and work in a cigarette smoke-filled environment every single day? Who has taken the well-being of blue-collar or service industry workers into account, seeing that they are more likely to be exposed to second-hand smoke? Non-smokers who are exposed to passive smoke at work are said to increase their chances of lung cancer by 20 to 30% and their chances of heart disease by 25 to 30%, and are also susceptible to immediate damage to the cardiovascular system. A recent report from the US Surgeon General, the nation's leading spokesman on matters of public health, on the health consequences of involuntary exposure to tobacco smoke, concluded that there is no safe level of exposure to secondhand smoke, and neither separating smokers from non-smokers nor installing ventilation systems effectively eliminates secondhand smoke. This growing mountain of facts has some now calling for a complete ban of smoking in all public areas, in bars, restaurants, casinos, and other entertainment arenas, in a bid to protect both the customer and the employee. As at July 2014, 49.2% of the United States is now protected by a 100% smoke-free workplace, restaurant, and bar law. Our own anti-tobacco network, led by Dr. Buntle Mbongwe, is calling for the same, joining the voices that say although some businesses seem to be afraid to ban smoking, there is no proof that going smoke-free is bad for business. Of the 3 casinos we contacted to share their policies on workplace health and smoking, as well as air their views on the feasibility of a complete smoking ban in entertainment areas, only Gaborone Hotel and Casino manager Kenneth Setlong was willing to grant us an interview. It is going to be an interesting one this evening. Feel free to add your 2 cents to the conversation on our social media platforms as we get the first issue of discussion underway. Welcome back to First Issues as we look to see how well the various stakeholders are protected against the occupational health hazard that is secondhand cigarette smoke. Dr. Buntle Mbongwe is the Interim Executive Director of Botswana's Anti-Tobacco Network, who says even the current measures put in place to protect Botswana from involuntary exposure to tobacco smoke are not being well observed.
First of all, it's very difficult to implement. I'll tell you why. If you go to Gaborone Sun, for example, at the casino section, I'm going to pick that because that's one example. I'll give you another example of another facility where the organization believes to be compliant. They have got some automatic doors that separates the smoking area and the non-smoking area. Unfortunately, as people keep entering and coming out, the doors open, and they open pretty wide for that matter. So unfortunately, it means that the smoke from that area is going to go into the non-smoking area. So certainly it means that the people who are in the non-smoking area are not going to be protected from tobacco smoke. If you pick a place like News Cafe, the area they've tried to comply, but unfortunately they've got opening doors, they've got that section of the bar or the restaurant where smokers can sit and where non-smokers can sit. So as the Anti-Tobacco Network, what we advocate for is for the government to totally ban smoking in all enclosed public places, so that one, you won't have to deal with enforcing, making sure that that door is always closed. And at the same time, you are going to make sure that everybody is protected, including the worker, who is also a citizen and a human being who needs to be protected.
Where could this problem with compliance stem from? Is it an issue of enforcement? And if so, what particular challenges have our enforcers been found to have?
When we had workshops, for example, with the Botswana Police Service, they did indicate at some point that some of the sections of the Act, unfortunately, they did not fully understand what they truly meant. For example, the physical separation. The fact that they know that there's this place and there are doors, but then going into the details of it, what can happen was the case. So we did identify that it is important when the government comes up with any law, that law, people are trained on it to understand the specifics of that law. What does tobacco advertising mean? Does that mean if I go and stand up with a mic outside and start saying, I'm selling tobacco? Or it simply means when you have a big advert. So those are the simple things that not only the law enforcement officers, even the public have to understand what they mean. Because in most countries where tobacco control laws are successful, the public kind of demands. And so they push government to do things even better. So where the public is ignorant, or the public, because in most cases what I think is people just kind of have accepted that when you go to a restaurant here at Riverwalk, for example, and you ask for a non-smoking area and somebody tells you that sit inside when you want to sit outside, they accept that. That should not be the case. I've got the right also to choose where I want to sit. So this is what I think needs to happen. Education of all, starting with the communities, including the law enforcement officers. So the law enforcement officers, in most cases, don't do what they're supposed to be doing, sometimes because they don't understand the specifics of that law.
Surely some regulators fully understand the specifications contained in the Control of Smoking Act. According to Dr. Mbongwe's observations, why then do we still see places that flaunt the law continue to operate?
What I can simply say is that where you've got weak enforcement and nobody has ever seen the consequences of not being compliant being applied, then there's a problem. Because one of the biggest issues is these laws have got provisions for offenses. If you do this, if you are not compliant, this is what you will do. Either you pay or you go to jail or your business is going to be closed. Nobody has ever closed any business. So I think it's an issue of, well, everybody else is doing it. Nothing has happened to anyone. And so you'll continue to do it.
Our other commentator on this topic, Mr. Kenneth Setlong, General Manager at Gaborone Hotel, the only hotel manager of 3 that we contacted to grant us an interview, illustrates that some places of business do take care to follow the current regulations.
The smoking policy requires a number of things. Number one, the premises must be divided into 2, smoking area and non-smoking area. For example, in the casino here, we have the smoking area and the non-smoking area. And the smoking area must be closed so that it doesn't interfere with the non-smoking area. And in the smoking area, there must be ventilation, proper ventilations. As you can see, we've got about 6 units of extraction fans and 2 36,000 BTU air conditioners to cater for all that smoke in the area. And also, we have to provide consistent and constant cleaning of the area to avoid smell and contamination, etc., to other people who don't smoke.
Now that we know that it takes more than a couple of sliding doors to physically separate a non-smoking and a smoking area, we asked Mr. Setlong what measures this particular establishment has in place to separate these two areas.
Okay, this physical separation made by automatic sliding doors and air curtains. That means the air in the smoking area cannot go into the non-smoking area. And the physical doors make sure that, again, the air does not go into the smoking area into the non-smoking area from the smoking area. Extraction fans like air conditioning system is weekly. It's a weekly thing. If you don't deal with them, you will start to feel effect immediately. They have to be maintained weekly. They're cleaned, serviced, and kept in good condition.
Having been made aware that current regulations do not cater for the well-being of workers in smoke-filled environments, we wanted to know the ways in which Gaborone Hotel in particular has taken it upon itself to cater for the well-being of its employees.
That is taken all the way back to during interview recruitment. When you recruit an interview, you alert the employee of the environment, where they'll be working, how they'll be working, with who they'll be dealing with. And the employee at recruitment is advised to make a decision whether he or she accepts, or sometimes they smoke themselves. So they normally say they don't have a problem with it. But if the problem can be noticed after enrollment, action can be taken to remove the such affected employees from smoking areas to non-smoking areas.
When asked whether a complete smoking ban was feasible, our guests were not surprisingly in disagreement. Dr. Mbongwe says not only is a complete ban feasible, it is also fair. While Mr. Setlong says it is a customer's right to choose whether or not they smoke in an entertainment area.
Already there's a ban. I mean, for example, people don't smoke in public transport, people don't smoke in aeroplanes, people don't smoke in a lot of places. But where entertainment is involved, people are given choice to go into the smoking area and or non-smoking area. So banning it will have a lot of implications, but I'm sorry, I don't advocate for banning at the moment. Some businesses will just not perform well because you must understand, people smoke is a habit that they have. So if you take it away from them, it might slow down your business because they will have to go somewhere else to smoke, to spend time standing outside smoking instead of continuing doing business, you understand? It must be kept aside for now.
A complete ban is feasible. Other countries have done it. They have physically banned smoking in all enclosed public places. And I mean, look, if we are being realistic, you go to a restaurant, you don't live in a restaurant. You go and eat for 2 hours there with your family. But we have seen the airlines banning smoking totally, and people can fly for 16 hours non-stop without smoking. So why is it difficult for a restaurant to totally ban smoking? Because you can go and smoke elsewhere after you eat, because other people come with their children, and you know children are a vulnerable group. You don't want to expose your child to smoking. So if the current situation, for example, if you go to a mall like Airport Junction, you'll find that most of the restaurants, they've decided that the seating place outside is a smoking area. Who said, as a non-smoker, I'm not interested in sitting outside and enjoy the clean breeze or and enjoy just the environment? Non-smokers are punished by the current law because it means that you have to be seated inside all the time. You can't enjoy the environment as much as the smoker. So it is feasible and is also fair if we do that. It's fair to the worker, it's fair to me as the client, and it protects public health.
The new Tobacco Regulation Authority is yet to be fully operational, and amendments to the Control of Smoking Act are also due to be announced this year. What changes these developments will bring are yet to be seen, but we here at First Issues feel that Dr. Mbongwe's closing words carry a lot of truth.
Each and every one of us have got a right to clean air. I've got to choose if I smoke. People who smoke made a choice. And so as a non-smoker also, I must be given that choice, the choice not to breathe bad air. And therefore, the employers also need to be fully aware that as they cater for the non-smokers who are their clients, they must cater for their non-smoking workers. So sometimes it's not even about the law. It's just common sense. The employer must know that they owe their employee protection and safety.
Not all may be converts though, as even the motives of activists such as this one come under question.
Okay, I think it's an issue of once bitten, twice shy. Maybe such people had problems with their family members or something, having diseases from smoke, etc., etc. And they're just bad, you understand? So they're not wrong to complain or to make a point, but they must look at a wider perspective.
Employers must also note that policies that fully protect their employees' health do more than fulfill an employer's legal obligation to provide a safe workplace. They also reduce the risk of litigation, potentially reduce workers' compensation premiums, and protect employees from harm. Welcome back to First Issues as we look into another issue that can affect employee health. In the past few weeks, we have discovered that employee health can be affected by things such as the workplace environment, air quality, noise, lighting, quality of equipment, and exposure to health hazards like dangerous chemicals and tobacco smoke, as well as working relationships with supervisors and co-workers and having personal resources and support, such as having someone to turn to if they have problems in their personal or work life. But tonight we remind you, the viewer at home, that not taking personal responsibility for your own health can result in you falling victim to the #1 killer in the world. The leading cause of death in the world is not accidents, HIV/AIDS, cancer, or suicide. It is heart disease. And tonight we look at the little understood but completely preventable heart attack. Does it really manifest itself as a pain in your chest? We have heard of people dying suddenly or in their sleep. Dr. Kiran Bhagat returns to the show to tell us exactly what a heart attack is.
Well, if one looks at the heart is in the middle of the chest and is surrounded by these two lungs here. And the heart itself, if you remember, is like it's the engine of the body. It pumps the blood around, but it itself also needs blood. The blood is pumped around because the blood contains oxygen. Oxygen is the vital elixir. It allows us to breathe, it allows us to be alive. But the heart also needs oxygen, and oxygen is supplied to the heart by little tubes, by little pipes. Okay? And those pipes eventually can get blocked if you feed those pipes the wrong food. And the primary food that we are feeding it is saturated fat. If you eat fried food, if you eat food that is saturated in fat, you will coat the arteries. Those arteries eventually become narrowed, and when they narrow, they develop a condition called angina, which is the Greek word for chest pain. The reason why you're getting chest pain is there's not enough oxygen being supplied to the muscles of the heart. Eventually, that narrowing results in a blockage, and that blockage is what we call a heart attack, which is a severe, intense, squeezing pain that occurs in the chest. I must emphasize that increasing evidence shows that women may present differently to men when it comes to a heart attack. The classic signs of a heart attack are pain on the left side. The pain may go into the back and may go into the jaw and eventually go down into the left arm. In women, increasing studies have shown that women may simply present with dizziness. They may present with a little bit of heartburn. Research has been predominantly done on men, and they've been done on white men in white-collar jobs. And we've begun to understand not only are women different, but also different ethnic populations are different in terms of the way they present with disease. But just focusing on women, women who have some of these vague symptoms should not resist the temptation to go to see the doctor and say, is it my heart that's causing a problem?
Other than an unhealthy diet or stress, the most commonly touted causes of heart attacks, which other habits can result in this complication?
There is a small population of people in which there are what we call familial or genetic reasons. You may often know people in your family that died suddenly. You know, many people who are asked, does anybody have a heart attack in your family? They'll say no. And the reason is nobody defined what a heart attack was. But a heart attack often presents with sudden death. Up to 50 to 60% of people that die have died of a heart attack. All of us know somebody who went to bed and the following morning didn't wake up. Okay? And often it's assumed it may be poisoning, it may be a stroke, it often is a heart attack. So it may be familial, which basically means it runs in families. There may be what we call congenital abnormalities of the heart. So there's an example of the heart. And the heart has 4 chambers, 2 small and 2 large. Okay? And blood flows through the small chambers into the big chambers. So anywhere here, architectural abnormalities can occur and go wrong and take time to develop, because when you're young, the heart is elastic, it's compliant, it's flexible, and is able to accommodate stress. But as you get older, and again, you feed it the wrong food. So these are the arteries we talked about that supply all the oxygen to your heart. And if you feed these arteries the wrong food, these arteries get blocked. And when they block, that's what causes a heart attack. In a younger population, it may be because you've fed that child the wrong food. We are increasingly understanding now, it's called the Baker's hypothesis, that what the mother eats during pregnancy may influence that child when the child becomes an adult. We know if the mother ate the wrong foods, that child, even if when the child is born and is fed well, when the child reaches their 30s and 40s, may be at risk of diabetes and heart attack and stroke because the mother ate poorly when she was pregnant. So the influence of genetics is very powerful. The last one I wanted to mention is the one that affects the sporting industry. We have often heard of athletes that suddenly fall down dead after a football match or during a football match or after an athletics game. And the reason is that we talked about architectural abnormalities, and the commonest cause of sudden death in athletes, sometimes from a heart attack, is where the left side of the heart, and the left side of the heart is important to pump the blood into the body. The right side receives blood to pump into the lungs to collect the oxygen. The left side of the heart may have grown in such a way that it's blocking the inside of the heart. We call that hypertrophic obstructive cardiomyopathy, which is a long-winded way of saying the muscle has become so thickened because the athlete has been training, has been lifting weights, and pretty much like your body becomes muscular when you weight train, certain hearts also become too muscular. And when they become over-muscular, that muscularity begins to compromise the cavity where the blood goes into the heart and blocks the ability of the blood to be pumped out.